disrespect is not an accident. It is a calculated test to see how cheaply your dignity can be bought. The moment you open your mouth to defend yourself, you have already lost the war. Your anger is exactly what they want, and your reaction is the leash they use to drag you through the mud. Understand the dark psychology of the manipulator. People who hurl insults, passive-aggressive remarks, or blatant disrespect are starving. They are starving for your energy, your validation, and your emotional collapse. When you react, you feed them. You confirm their significance. You tell them that their pathetic words have the power to alter your internal state. They want you to shout. They want you to justify yourself. They want to watch your chest heave and your voice tremble because your loss of control is their temporary illusion of power. But absolute silence? Silence is a vacuum. It starves them of the very oxygen they need to survive the interaction. When you give them absolutely nothing, no anger, no witty comeback, no defense, you turn their psychological weapon back on them. The silence becomes deafening. It amplifies their disrespect and forces them to sit alone with their own toxicity. Human beings are deeply uncomfortable with a void. When they throw a punch and hit nothing but empty air, the momentum pulls them forward, causing them to lose their balance. They expect resistance. When you deny them resistance, their confidence fractures. They begin to doubt themselves. They look foolish, small, and entirely powerless. Marcus Aurelius understood this profound level of extreme detachment. He wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." This is the ultimate Stoic fortress. You must view their words not as a personal attack, but as meaningless noise in the wind. A barking dog does not offend the mountain. The mountain does not explain its greatness to the dog. It simply exists, unmoved and impenetrable. You must cultivate this absolute internal separation. Their disrespect is a reflection of their flawed character, not yours. To respond is to step down from your throne and wrestle in the dirt with a peasant. Let them wallow in their own filth. You are untouchable. Your ego does not require their respect to survive. From this moment forward, when someone disrespects you, you will execute the cold pause. You will not blink. You will not smile. You will look them directly in the eyes with the dead, empty stare of a predator assessing a deeply insignificant threat. Hold eye contact for 3 agonizing seconds. Let the silence stretch until it suffocates them. Do not break the tension. Let them drown in the awkward, heavy void you have created. Once the 3 seconds are over, you will slowly turn your head and return your attention to whatever you were doing. You will dismiss them completely from your reality. You will treat them as if they have ceased to exist. You do not argue. You do not storm off. You simply erase them from your timeline. This is not passive. This is the most aggressive psychological strike you can deliver. You are showing them that they lack the clearance to access your emotional grid. Rule number 2. You are a slave to voices that do not matter. The moment you alter your behavior to fit someone else's opinion, you surrender your autonomy to a ghost. You are letting people who cannot even control their own lives dictate the boundaries of yours. Let us dissect the dark psychology of opinion weapons. Manipulators, critics, and toxic narcissists use their judgments as psychological anchors. They drop an opinion, a critique of your choices, a jab at your ambition, a doubt about your worth, and wait for you to drag it around. They want to see you adjust. They want to see you compromise, over-explain, or shift your posture to appease them, because it proves they have a hand on your steering wheel. When you treat their opinions like background noise, you break their psychological leverage entirely. You deny them the feedback loop they depend on. It maddens a manipulator when their sharpest criticism is received with the exact same emotional weight as the hum of an air conditioner or the distant sound of traffic. It registers as static, dead air. By failing to react, you signal to their subconscious that their mind is fundamentally lower than theirs. You render them irrelevant. Their calculated words lose all velocity and drop dead at your feet, leaving them feeling transparent, unseen, and utterly castrated in their attempts to influence your reality. Seneca understood this cold truth perfectly. He recognized that the opinions of the masses are a disease, stating that we should treat the praises and criticisms of the unthinking crowd with absolute indifference. This is the art of extreme detachment from externals. A Stoic does not fight the noise. He simply classifies it correctly as something outside his control and therefore completely meaningless. Why should you value the judgment of someone whose character you do not even respect? If you would not ask them for advice, why would you accept their criticism? They are prisoners of their own biases, projections, and secret envies. Their opinion of you is actually just a monologue about themselves. When you internalize this, you build an iron wall between their mouth and your mind. You don't get angry at a bird for chirping, and you don't get angry at a fool for speaking. They are just fulfilling their nature. You remain the observer, anchored in your own reality, completely unaffected by the storm of external nonsense. Here is your ruthless execution from this day forward. When someone offers an uninvited opinion or a masked critique, you will not argue, defend, or counterattack. You will nod slowly once. You will look through them, not at them, as if they are a pane of glass. Then you will deliver a two-word psychological death sentence, spoken in a flat, monotone whisper, "Good to know," or simply, "I see." Do not change your facial expression. Do not adjust your plans. Do not mention it again. You do not try to prove them wrong with words. You ignore them with your actions. If they press further, you repeat the exact same phrase, using the exact same dead tone, until they realize they are talking to a brick wall. You treat their speech as ambient noise in a crowded room, there, but completely unworthy of your focus. You kill their influence through absolute irrelevance. Rule number 3. Your constant availability is not a sign of loyalty. It is glaring proof that your time is entirely worthless. Every single time you instantly reply to a message, you signal to the world that you have absolutely nothing better to do than wait on their command. You have willingly placed a digital collar around your own neck and handed the leash to anyone with a smartphone. Toxic people and manipulators thrive on immediate access. They want the power to reach into your mind, disrupt your peace, and extract an emotional reaction whenever they please. This immediate access makes you a highly predictable, easily controlled resource. When you abruptly withdraw that access, you trigger their deepest psychological anxieties. You introduce a terrifying, uncontrollable variable into their carefully constructed reality, absolute uncertainty. They send a demanding text, and they expect the immediate dopamine hit of your reply. When it does not arrive, their own sick imagination turns against them. They begin to frantically wonder if they have lost control over you. They obsess over what you are doing, who you are with, and exactly why they are suddenly sitting at the bottom of your priority list. The dark psychology at play here is withdrawal. By restricting their access to your energy, you artificially manufacture scarcity. Scarcity breeds desperation. You completely flip the power dynamic, forcing them to wait in the dark, constantly refreshing their screens, while you live your life completely unbothered. You ruthlessly strip away their illusion of importance by proving they do not dictate your schedule. Seneca vehemently warned us about the invisible theft of time, noting the tragic irony that people are fiercely frugal with their money, yet desperately eager to give away their most finite, irreplaceable resource, their own lives. The modern Stoic understands that his time is his only true currency. To grant a disrespectful person unfettered access to your time is to let them rob you blind in broad daylight. You must practice extreme detachment from the digital leash. You are never obligated to exist on someone else's frantic timeline. The glowing screen in your pocket is not your master, it is merely a tool. A Stoic reclaims his absolute sovereignty by stepping completely out of the reactive chaos of modern communication. He anchors himself in reality, completely detached from the artificial urgency created by flashing notifications, red bubbles, and ringing alarms. Here is your cold execution protocol. Turn off every notification on your phone immediately. From this exact moment forward, you will never reply to a text, email, or message the very second it arrives. You will enforce a mandatory, non-negotiable delay. If it is a minor contact, you wait a minimum of 4 hours. If it is someone who has ever disrespected you, you wait 24 hours, or you choose not to reply at all. Read receipts must be disabled permanently. You will leave them drowning in the agonizing void of not knowing if you have even seen their pathetic words. When you finally do decide to reply, your answers will be brutally concise. No emojis. No weak explanations for your delay. No apologies for being busy. You do not owe them your time, and you certainly do not owe them an explanation for your silence. You will train them like dogs to understand that your attention is a rare, expensive privilege, entirely controlled by you. Rule number 4. Your desperate need to be understood by people who despise you is a pathetic symptom of a weak mind. Every time you explain your actions to a fool, you are begging an inferior judge for a verdict you do not need. You are willingly placing your head on their chopping block, handing them the axe, and hoping for mercy. Let us dissect the dark psychology of the trap called the explanation. Toxic people and manipulators do not ask questions to understand you. They ask questions to corner you. They demand explanations to force you into a defensive posture. When you start justifying your choices, your boundaries, or your beliefs, you subtly acknowledge that they hold the authority to approve or reject your reality. You are no longer an equal. You are a subordinate giving a report. This is a game of psychological dominance. When you refuse to explain yourself, you break the rules of their game entirely. You deny them the courtroom they built to prosecute you. By simply stating your position and offering zero justification, you project a terrifying level of self-assurance. They want you to ramble. They want you to stumble over your words and present arguments they can tear apart. When you give them nothing but a hardened conclusion, their manipulative tactics hit a solid brick wall. They are left holding an empty bag, completely stripped of their false authority and drowning in their inability to crack your armor. Epictetus laid down the ultimate law of internal sovereignty: emphasizing extreme detachment from the validation of the outside world. A true Stoic recognizes that his logic, his ethics, and his path are governed by his own internal reason, not by the shifting, irrational consensus of the mob. To explain yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you is to insult your own intelligence. You must view their confusion not as a problem for you to solve, but as a burden for them to carry. You do not owe the world a thesis on your existence. Your actions are the final draft. If a fool cannot comprehend your moves, that is a reflection of their cognitive limits, not a flaw in your strategy. You operate entirely outside their jurisdiction. A lion does not draft an apology letter to the gazelle. Here is your ruthless protocol for execution. From this second forward, the word because is permanently erased from your vocabulary when dealing with toxic individuals. When you make a decision, set a boundary, or take an action, you will state it as an absolute, unbending fact. If they demand to know why, you will look them dead in the eye and say, "Because I decided to." If they push for a deeper explanation, you will not flinch and you will not raise your voice. You will reply with a cold, unwavering tone, "I have given you my answer. I am not debating it." Then you simply turn your back and walk away. You do not negotiate. You do not offer a single crumb of justification. You let them suffocate in the terrifying realization that your reality requires absolutely no clearance from them. You are the final authority in your own life. Rule number 5. Your addiction to chaos is the exact reason you are continually victimized by weak people. Every single time you engage in their manufactured drama, you are willingly drinking the poison they pour just to prove you can swallow it. You think you are fighting a noble battle for respect, but you are actually just performing as an obedient puppet in their twisted, pathetic circus. Let us dissect the dark psychology of a narcissist's hunger. They are completely hollow entities, entirely incapable of generating their own self-worth, so they must harvest it violently through the emotional reactions of others. Drama is their lifeblood. They provoke, twist facts, and create catastrophic emergencies out of thin air because your panic, anger, and frantic frustration validate their existence. When you fight back, you assure them they matter. Starving them of drama is the ultimate psychological execution. When you deny them a reaction, you sever their emotional food supply. You force them to stare directly into their own agonizing emptiness. Without your chaotic response to anchor their false reality, their grand illusion immediately shatters. They panic. They escalate, desperately trying to elicit a spark, but when they hit the cold, unyielding ice of your apathy, they suffocate. They are forced to retreat and find a weaker host, simply because you have become psychologically toxic to their parasitic nature. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire surrounded by relentless betrayal, endless plague, and staggering incompetence, yet he remained an untouchable fortress of profound peace. He practiced the ultimate form of emotional compartmentalization, recognizing that the madness of others is entirely external to the self. A Stoic observes a roaring fire but does not throw his own flesh into the flames just to prove he can feel the heat. You must immediately adopt this extreme detachment. Their crisis is not your crisis. Their emotional turbulence is nothing but a localized storm raging inside a tiny snow globe, while you stand entirely outside of it. When they bring you chaos, you must look at it with the cold, detached curiosity of a scientist observing an inferior species. You absolutely refuse to absorb their disease. You let them spin out of control while you remain completely anchored to the concrete floor of your own unshakable reality. Here is your ruthless protocol for starving the parasite. When a toxic individual attempts to drag you into their manufactured drama, you will physically and emotionally power down. Your face must instantly go entirely slack. Relax your jaw, deaden your eyes, and let your entire body language project total, devastating boredom. You will not defend your character. You will not attempt to correct their outrageous lies. You will simply let them rant, scream, and throw their childish tantrum into an empty void. When they finally pause, breathless and eagerly waiting for your explosive reaction, you will look at them with absolute, bone-chilling pity. You will utter one single hollow sentence, "Are you completely finished?" Do not wait for their pathetic answer. Turn around and walk away to resume a highly mundane task. Pick up a book. Wash a dirty glass. Prove to them through brutal, physical action that their emotional hurricane is significantly less interesting to you than a silent, empty room. Rule number 6. Your blind faith in human loyalty is not a virtue. It is a profound cognitive weakness waiting to be exploited. Every time you are shocked by a knife in your back, it is because you foolishly handed them the blade and turned completely around. You are constantly victimized not because people are inherently evil, but because your naive expectations demand a fairy tale that does not exist. Let us dissect the dark psychology of the opportunist. Toxic individuals, users, and manipulators rely heavily on the element of surprise. They weaponize your trust, knowing that the sudden shock of betrayal will paralyze your logical mind and force you into an emotional collapse. When they betray you, they expect you to shatter, to weep, and to demand agonizing explanations. This is their ultimate power trip. But when you actively expect betrayal as a standard operating variable of human nature, you neutralize their ultimate weapon. You strip them of the devastating impact they crave. When a traitor finally shows their true colors, and you simply stare back with a cold, knowing smirk, it absolutely destroys their psychological dominance. You rob them of the chaotic fallout they engineered. Instead of standing victorious over a broken victim, they realize they were playing checkers while you were playing chess. They feel immediately exposed, predictable, and remarkably stupid for thinking they could outsmart a mind that had already calculated their exact move. Seneca practiced a brutal psychological exercise known as premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. This is not pessimism, it is the ultimate tactical advantage. A Stoic visualizes the absolute worst-case scenario in every human interaction, not to drown in anxiety, but to immunize his mind against shock. You must view every handshake, every promise, and every vow of loyalty as highly conditional. People act in their own self-interest, and the moment your existence no longer serves their agenda, they will discard you without hesitation. When you deeply internalize this extreme detachment, betrayal transforms from a world-ending tragedy into a highly predictable, boring inevitability. You do not hate them for their treachery. You do not seek elaborate revenge. You simply classify their behavior as an expected data point in the flawed human algorithm. You remain an impenetrable fortress, entirely unfazed because the enemy's attack was simulated in your mind 1,000 times before it ever happened. Here is your ruthless protocol for future alliances. From this exact second forward, you will mentally draft a resignation letter for every single relationship in your life. You will look at your closest ally, your business partner, or your lover, and silently accept that they could turn against you by tomorrow morning. You will never again say the words, "They would never do that to me." Yes, they would, and given the right circumstances, they absolutely will. When the inevitable betrayal occurs, you will not shed a single tear, nor will you ask them why. You will sever the connection instantly, with the surgical precision of a butcher slicing dead weight from a bone. You will look them directly in the eyes and say in a dead, unfeeling tone, "I expected nothing less." You will turn your back, delete their existence from your contacts, and march forward without missing a single step. You are an untouchable ghost, completely immune to the poison of surprise. Rule number 7. Your desperate urge to announce your next move is a pathetic cry for cheap validation from people who secretly want you to fail. Every single time you open your mouth to brag about a goal before it is actually achieved, you are handing your enemies the exact blueprint on how to destroy it. You are actively sabotaging your own future simply because your fragile ego cannot survive without the immediate, empty applause of a crowd. Let us dissect the dark psychology of hidden intentions. Toxic people, covert narcissists, and envious peers are constant gatherers of intelligence. They obsessively scan your words for vulnerabilities, timelines, and ambitions so they can set calculated psychological traps. When they know exactly what you want, they know exactly what to withhold, criticize, or sabotage to crush your spirit. By moving in absolute darkness and utterly refusing to broadcast your goals, you completely blind them. You strip away their ability to meddle, project their toxic doubt, or sabotage your path. A manipulator cannot derail a train if they do not even know the tracks exist. This terrifying lack of information completely paralyzes them. They are forced to sit in agonizing suspense, entirely unable to predict your trajectory or map your mind. It violently breaks their illusion of control over you, turning them from active saboteurs into helpless, sideline spectators who only find out about your victory when it is already far too late to stop it. Epictetus constantly advised his students to show, not tell, emphasizing that a wise man does not boast about his principles to the unthinking mob. He demonstrates them through silent, undeniable action. This is the disciplined practice of extreme detachment from external validation. A true Stoic operates from a hardened core of internal approval, recognizing that seeking premature praise completely dilutes the focused energy required to actually build something of worth. Your ambitions are sacred, private fires. Exposing them to the toxic wind of public opinion will only blow them out. You must detach entirely from the pathetic desire to be seen as a person of potential and instead become a ruthless, silent executor of reality. You do not need the nodding approval of fools to validate the heavy path you walk. You quietly harness your energy, perfectly content to exist in the shadows, deeply anchored in the knowledge that the final result will speak with a deafening roar. Here is your ruthless protocol for operating in the dark. From this precise moment forward, your lips are permanently sealed regarding your finances, your career moves, your physical training, and your personal conquests. If someone asks what you are working on, you will look at them with dead eyes and offer a deeply uninteresting, perfectly vague response. Just keeping busy, or working on the usual routine. You will never drop hints. You will never post cryptic updates online to bait curiosity. You will aggressively starve them of every single detail. You must swallow your pride and actively let people underestimate you. Let them foolishly assume you are stagnant. Let them think you lack ambition. While they sleep comfortably in their arrogant ignorance, you will grind in absolute, terrifying silence. You will only reveal your hand when the check is cashed, the deal is legally signed, and the war is already won. You will strike like lightning, felt instantly, with absolutely zero warning. Rule number 8. Your lifelong, pathetic obsession with being loved is the invisible collar dragging you through a miserable existence of constant submission. Every time you alter your behavior to win someone's approval, you are openly confessing that your own soul is entirely worthless without their permission. You are not a victim of unrequited love. You are a willing hostage to your own desperate, sickly need to be validated by people who do not even like themselves. Let us dissect the dark psychology of affection-based manipulation. Toxic individuals, narcissists, and emotional vampires possess a predatory radar for people who crave acceptance. They weaponize your desire to be understood by turning their love into a highly conditional currency. They will purposely misunderstand you, withhold affection, and offer fleeting crumbs of approval just to watch you dance like a desperate animal begging for a treat. When you violently kill the desire to be loved or understood, you instantly bankrupt them. You render their only psychological weapon completely useless. They attempt to give you the silent treatment, but instead of panicking and begging for resolution, you remain absolutely unbothered. They try to gaslight you into explaining your intentions, but you refuse to offer a single word of clarification. By extinguishing your need for their warmth, you transform into a terrifying, impenetrable fortress of ice. They are left holding a leash that is attached to absolutely nothing, utterly broken by the realization that they can no longer use your own heart as an extortion tool. Marcus Aurelius governed a treacherous empire while writing that a man's mind should be a citadel, completely self-sufficient and undisturbed by the chaotic opinions of outsiders. This is the profound practice of internal emotional sovereignty. A modern Stoic realizes that demanding to be understood by the world is an exercise in extreme futility. You must cultivate a ruthless, extreme detachment from the need for external warmth. If someone loves you, it is simply a preferred indifferent, a fleeting bonus, not a structural pillar of your sanity. If they despise you, misunderstand you, or cast you out, your internal reality does not shift a single millimeter. You find immense, quiet power in being a villain in someone else's flawed narrative. You do not need their fragile comprehension to validate your heavy existence. You must learn to sit comfortably in the freezing cold of their disapproval, deeply warmed by the fire of your own unyielding self-respect. Here is your ruthless protocol for emotional amputation. From this exact second forward, you will permanently stop explaining your motives to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. When someone threatens to withdraw their affection, you will hold the door open for them and stare at them with dead, unflinching eyes. You will literally say the words, "Do what you must." You will never chase a retreating figure, and you will never send another pathetic, multi-paragraph text attempting to force someone to see your perspective. If they choose to view you as cold, arrogant, or heartless, you will simply nod and let them drown in their own incorrect conclusions. You will embrace the profound isolation of absolute self-reliance. You will train yourself to thrive in the vacuum of unshared reality, needing absolutely no one to translate your worth. You are a solitary apex predator. You do not require a round of applause to exist. Rule number 9. Every single hour you spend obsessing over someone else's disrespect is a pathetic forfeiture of your own life force to a parasite who deserves nothing. You are literally funding their psychological rent by actively bankrupting your own future potential just to win a meaningless, invisible argument in your head. Your lack of tangible success is directly tied to the undeniable fact that you care more about seeking petty revenge than building an untouchable empire. Let us dissect the dark psychology of energetic siphoning. Manipulators, narcissists, and toxic antagonists are entirely uncreative entities. They cannot build their own kingdoms, so they survive by throwing rocks at yours, hoping you will stop laying bricks to throw stones back. They desperately want you entirely consumed by their manufactured drama because your focused attention is their ultimate prize. When you violently redirect all of that stolen energy away from them and pour it exclusively into your own ascent, you engineer their total psychological collapse. You do not argue, you do not retaliate, and you do not defend yourself. You simply accelerate. By actively transforming their toxic provocations into high-octane fuel for your personal success, you strip them of their power and render their attacks entirely useless. They are forced to watch from the miserable sidelines as the exact friction they created propels you into a stratosphere they can never reach. It breaks them because they realize they accidentally served as the stepping stone for your undeniable greatness, cementing their permanent status as a total failure. The ancients understood the profound principle of Amor, Fati, the fierce love of one's fate, turning every single obstacle into the exact material needed for the fire. A true Stoic does not simply endure a malicious attack. They aggressively cannibalize it for its raw energy. You must cultivate extreme detachment from the emotional sting of betrayal or disrespect and view these events strictly as utilitarian fuel. The hostility of others is no longer a wound. It is a direct deposit into your motivational bank account. You do not hate your enemies. You use them. When they attempt to tear you down, you do not bleed. You absorb their kinetic energy and violently channel it into your business, your physique, and your relentless pursuit of absolute mastery. You become a terrifying alchemy machine, effortlessly converting the poison of inferior people into gold for your own impenetrable fortress. Here is your ruthless protocol for violent energy redirection. The very next time someone insults you, undermines you, or attempts to drag you into their swamp of mediocrity, you will not utter a single syllable of defense. You will immediately lock your jaw, turn your back, and physically throw yourself into a high-yield task. If they send a toxic text, you drop the phone and immediately complete a grueling physical workout. If they attempt to humiliate you in a meeting, you sit in absolute silence and aggressively draft the blueprint for your next lucrative financial move. You will mentally tag their face to your grandest ambition. Let your blazing, undeniable success become the only revenge you ever exact. You will build an empire so massive, so incredibly blinding, that it casts a permanent, suffocating shadow over their entire pathetic existence. You will leave them to rot in the absolute wasteland of their own irrelevance while you conquer the world. Rule number 10. You are currently suffering because you cling to the delusional hope that people will act with honor, loyalty, and empathy. The agonizing reality is that you are surrounded by predatory actors who will exploit every ounce of kindness you possess until there is nothing left. Your refusal to accept the raw, dark nature of humanity is the only reason you keep getting crushed by the same predictable betrayal. Let us dissect the dark psychology of the predator. Narcissists and manipulators rely on the good person mask you project. They need you to be outraged, disappointed, or hurt to derive their sense of control. When you finally stop fighting reality and accept that the world is a chaotic, self-interested void, you strip them of their primary leverage. You stop expecting them to be better, which means you no longer care when they inevitably act like monsters. You are no longer reacting to their treachery, which leaves them screaming into the void, baffled by your terrifying lack of emotional recoil. By internalizing that this cold, transactional nature is the baseline, you remove the surprise factor they use to keep you off balance. You stop trying to change them, and you start managing them like the biological hazards they are, rendering their manipulative games entirely toothless. Amor Fati is not a passive surrender to misery, it is a weaponized embrace of the absolute truth. You must reach a state of extreme detachment where you do not just tolerate the chaos of human nature, but actively love it as the essential, unchangeable texture of reality. The Stoics knew that fighting against the true, often ugly, nature of the world is a foolish, exhausting endeavor that yields only pain. You must strip away your expectations of how people should act and replace them with a cold observation of how they actually act. Once you stop wishing for a kinder reality, you become a master of the one that exists. You stop being the victim of human nature and become its most lethal student. Your peace of mind no longer depends on other people being moral. It depends entirely on your ability to observe their immorality without flinching. Here is your ruthless protocol for integrating this hard truth. From this moment, you will view every human interaction as a clinical study. Before you shake a hand, you will mentally classify that person based on their potential for betrayal, not their potential for kindness. You will never again say, "I can't believe they did that," because you will believe it entirely. You will assume that every person you know is capable of every crime, betrayal, and deception, and you will act accordingly. You will build your defenses, keep your secrets locked in an iron vault, and never rely on the moral compass of another human being to keep your life intact. When they inevitably fail you, you will not cry. You will acknowledge the data, adjust your position, and keep moving without a single wasted breath. You are now the master of a cold reality, and that reality is finally yours to conquer.